people get comfortable in anxiety. They get comfortable in a depressive state even.
Yeah.
It's familiar territory. And the fear pops in because they're afraid to get better. What happens if I have a setback? Again, do you hear like the what ifs?
And so I did want to spend a little bit of time giving audience members like concrete coping skills or techniques that they can use for these different, whether it's disorders or the struggles and symptoms that they're going through that maybe you like to use and that I use with clients as well.
Yeah, I would say for panic disorder, I start with normalizing what's happening, not panicking. When you know know your body of what's happening. Like, are your palms getting sweaty, for example? Is your starting to race? Are you getting nauseous? Okay, if that's happening, remain calm. Stay still, walk to the sink, walk to your bathroom, splash some cold water on your face, put an ice cube on the back of your neck. That can help calm the nervous system and tell yourself, I know what's happening right now. I'm having a panic attack. And again, slowing your inner dialogue has been very helpful because oftentimes when something scary is happening to us, the mind starts to race a million miles an hour. So have to be very careful and cognizant of, hey, let's slow it down. Let's imagine something slow, like a turtle, for example. And I've mentioned this to clients, like it's kind of funny, but if we can visualize something slow, the mind is telling the body it's okay to calm back down. There's no immediate danger. So that's where I start is self-soothing techniques, calming the heart rate, because your heart rate's going to start to increase with a panic attack. Because like you said earlier, it can mimic a heart attack, which is really terrifying. I've had a panic attack before, and it does help me to coach people through it a lot easier after having because I definitely saw that increase, I think, after the pandemic and people not knowing what was going on with them, right? So that fear of the unknown was a whole other layer to exasperating the panic and causing it to last longer than it should. Because we can decrease a panic attack you can start having it and it can be over in 60 seconds or over in 2 hours. The duration varies a lot. But as long as you start to think slow, control your heart rate, breathe. Again, you put ice on your forehead or on the back of your neck. That can be extreme. That cold temperature helpful to reset the nervous system and offer soothing to the body.
Yeah, I love that. So I like to let clients know it's basically the same, right? Is that when our body has these symptoms, it feels unsafe, right? And when we feel unsafe, when our nervous system feels unsafe, a lot of the time we don't have the capacity to challenge our thoughts. So the first and most important thing that you can do is how can I send the message to my body that I am safe, that I am okay, and that I can just be present, right? So it's like you're saying, slowing down, having something cold, breathing, especially for a panic attack. I've had them too. It is not a good time. Like you literally cannot breathe, which is horrifying within itself. And so it's literally just focusing on, I need to catch my breath, I need to slow my breath, and I need to count my breath. That is your only job, is to focus on calming down your nervous system enough where you feel safe. And then from there, once you feel safe and you've calmed down, then you can kind of process. Then you can kind of challenge some of those thoughts after the fact.
Right.
But I don't like to let clients go into that first because you're just kind of amping up the anxiety.
Yeah, right. We have to get the physiological symptoms under control before we can start emotionally processing. Because we're so terrified and they're in that fight or flight position and the body is telling us that we're in danger, it's going to just exasperate things. We're like, well, how does that make you feel? Like, I'm never going to tell somebody that. It's absolutely
no. Like, I'm horrified. What do you think?
So I love what you said, like, get the symptoms under control first and process after. Because a lot of times people come and they're like, I don't even know what triggered me. It literally came out of nowhere. But that gives us a really great opportunity for self-discovery. When people tell me, I don't know, I'm not sure, cool, let's use that as a great moment to like discover like what's beneath the surface.
And that is, I love that because That's what I like to ask clients when they come in with anxiety or depression is how do you know you're experiencing it? Which may sound silly because like I'm always in it, but how do you know that, right? Like what are all the symptoms? What are the thoughts? What are you feeling in your body so that you become more aware and knowledgeable of your personal experience so that next time it happens, you're like, oh, okay, I'm starting to feel anxious. This is typically what happens. Now I can kind of assess my environment or my internal thoughts. What are associated with this experience right now that I can then process later and go back to?
Well, exactly. And you're slowing it down.
Mm-hmm.
To me, that's been some of the most helpful things that I've received feedback from clients lately is being mindful and aware of what's happening and just taking the slow route. And you can come up with your own internal dialogue, but like
Mm-hmm.
literally slowing the way you talk to yourself. Because when you start talking that way, you can feel the body starting to slow down. Because when we're
Mm-hmm.
talking fast, the body's like playing catch up with that.
Yeah. I like that because it kind of pairs with the rest of our sensations, right? Because it's kind of controlling. If I kind of pull this lever, then this lever will kind of change appropriately or react appropriately to this,
Right.
right? So going through all our senses. So sometimes like even I myself or some clients like, okay, I know I have anxiety. I recognize what's happening. I understand what the triggers are. I still feel uneasy, right? So it's like having the awareness is phenomenal. It's the first step, but then it's like, and now what? Which can feel frustrating too. So I like to have them before they're even anxious, right? Like when they're already in a calm state, is to establish a place in their mind of somewhere they may have already been or that they can create is where is an environment that you feel the most safe and calm and at ease. And I want you to visualize it. And through the visualization, I want you to hear the sounds. I want you to smell what's going on around you. I want you to experience the sensations and feelings on your body and against your body. And if you're eating or tasting anything, I want you to fully immerse yourself in this super calm, peaceful state that you can then pull to later as a way to self-soothe yourself anywhere, anytime without anybody. Because I think it's powerful for people to have that they can pull from anytime. It feels like you're less out of control and more aware of what you can do for yourself.
Well, it's so soothing. Even like as you were describing and taking that step by step, it felt so soothing. Like hearing you go from, hey, what are you smelling? What are you seeing? And for our listeners, basically, we're describing like guided imagery that can just be such a great visual and a great relaxation and soothing tool. Like you said, think of any peaceful environment that you possibly can, or use your imagination. You're changing the way you interpret something. And, to kind of fall back on what you said earlier was you're also discussing reality testing and really kind of testing the reality of your own thoughts. Right. And sometimes when we ask, well, how do you know that something bad's going to happen? You're assuming at the end of the day. And that assumption can be a dangerous game. We all understand that. But it really is just getting to a conscious place to be ready to make that decision. Because sometimes what I have learned in my experience is people get comfortable in anxiety. They get comfortable in a depressive state even.
Yeah.
It's familiar territory. And the fear pops in because they're afraid to get better. What happens if I have a setback? Again, do you hear like the what ifs? What if common factor with anxiety disorders, even depression? So again, if we can change the way we interpret things, we can catch that what if. We don't have to feed it. Easier said than done for all the listeners. Completely understand that. But I wouldn't say those things if I haven't seen them work.
For sure. And I think that's such an important feature is that what you mentioned is getting comfortable in the anxiety and almost holding on to it. Because I think this happens a lot too in treatment is that someone will progress and they will get better. And there'll be this kind of signal like, okay, like things are working pretty well. We can probably see each other less. And then all of a sudden it's like, uh-oh, and more comes back, or they start unconsciously sabotaging things around them because we're scared of change, right? Like it may sound counterintuitive, like, oh, I want to get better. Why would I do that to myself? But it's thinking like, what is the function of that, right? So like if if I change, then I can no longer rely on certain things. And if I fall back on some of those things, then like you said, what could happen? Or I'm not going to have the same supports, or I don't know who I'm going to be, or what am I going to spend my time thinking about? Or maybe that's part of my identity. So now how do I show up in the world if I'm not an anxious person and everyone around me kind of caters to that a little bit?
And that's a lot, right? Spiraling around in our brains like on a daily basis. Well, what if this happens? If I get better and then I slip up or this or that. But I'm like, I'll tell clients I expect that to happen because beings at the end of the day, it is not going to be perfect.